Of NASCAR DFS preview. I'm Austin with the Sports Chief, and happy Halloween out there to everybody. The season is winding down, so we only have 2 events left in the NASCAR Cup Series schedule, with this one being in Martinsville, at the Martinsville Speedway, for the Xfinity 500. And then, 4 of the top 8 drivers will advance to the finale, and Homestead in Phoenix. So there's a lot on the line, a lot at stake at this race. That's something we're looking at when making our lineups. Track position is always key. Pit stalls are going to be pretty key as well, depending on where you're at on the track and, who is around you, basically. That's going to be a really big factor into seeing who's going to come out on top as well. Of course, we're looking at history. We don't have practice anymore, so that's we're having to look at history. And also past performance at other short tracks I'm kind of putting into effect. One thing that worked for me in the Truck Series race, I had a really good feeling that Grant Enfinger was going to run the truck race because he was so good at Richmond. And normally when you have a good short track program, Martinsville is not just like Richmond, but it's a high braking track. It's a momentum track. And if you perform well there, you'll probably do well here. And honestly, you look at the best Cup drivers, and I'll go over the statistics here in a little bit, but the drivers that are pretty good at Richmond are pretty good here too. So short track program is just very key. So yeah, let's just go ahead and check it out and see what Draftkings has to offer for us here. Let me scroll up to the very top. Looks like we have a little more 10K drivers here. So Martin Truex Jr. is our most expensive driver, starting in second at 11.8. Brad Keselowski on the pole at 11.4. Kevin Harvick starting in 6th at 11,000. Ryan Blaney starting in 10th at 10.7. Chase Elliott starting in 8th at 10.4. And rounding out our 10K drivers is Denny Hamlin starting in 4th spot. So Martin Truex Jr., our first option here, has won the last 2 Martinsville races. And looky here, him and Keselowski have been pretty much neck and neck. Fantasy points per race, they're exactly the same. They've had the same amount of top 10s and, of course, the same amount of starts this year. So they've been very similar. Right now, as the season stands, Joey Logano is locked in for Phoenix. You have Kevin Harvick, who is all but locked in. He has to have a really good first stage, and I think he could pretty much lock himself in. As long as he stays out on the track, basically. I think he's 40-some points ahead. So if he gets like 2nd or 3rd in the first stage, that could really help him. Or even if he wins the first stage. So yeah, you have Logano, Harvick, and then right now, as it stands, it's Hamlin and Keselowski 3 and 4. So Truex is in a must-win situation. So is Chase Elliott. So is Alex Bowman. And so is Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch is like 80-some points out. So that's how it stands right now. It's a little surprising that DraftKings put Ryan Blaney in 10.7 and the 4th most expensive driver there. I know he's got a really good history here. His average finish is 11.7, so he's one of the better drivers here, but that's that's a steep price to pay for a non-playoff driver. Not to say that a non-playoff driver can't win the race, but, Kyle Busch won at Texas, so, but anyway. Again, I went back to the short track program. So Brad Keselowski has actually, he's won twice here. His average finish is 10.5. He's very good here. His last non-top 10 finish was in 2015. It's been 5 years since he has finished outside the top 10 at the top 10. Wow, about said 15. Top 10 at this track. He has that first pit stall, which is very key here at this track. You don't have anyone else to worry about in front of you. You just have the slow, long ride down to the first pit stall, and then you're good to go. So that's something to look at for in this event. The best driver here is Jimmy Johnson in terms of history. He's starting in 27th spot, and I expect Jimmy to be a little bit chalky. He's got 9 wins here. His average finish is 9.3, which is remarkable. The only other driver that has less than, he's right at 10, but he's less than 10, is Denny Hamlin at 9.9. And he's won here 5 times. So yeah, there you have as far as past performance. You have a few guys in there that's won once or twice. But to me, I'm not even looking anywhere else right now. I'm wanting to pick my best driver and my choice to win the race. I think Brad Keselowski wins this race. I think it's very feasible for him to lead at least 250 laps. Again, we're running 500 laps at this track. Now, short tracks are one of the hardest in DFS because you have to have at least one driver in your lineup, basically, that dominates the race. It can, and it has happened, it's possible, that more than one driver leads more than 200 laps. Or more than 100, but you really still want to have those drivers because at a quarter a point a lap, that helps you in the fact that if they wreck, you still got that to fall back on, right? And you're trying to pick drivers that'll finish as good as possible, as well as possible. It sounds easier said than done, but I'll show you kind of what I mean when I'm making this lineup here. So yeah, at 11-4, I'm going with Brad Keselowski. Truex is just a little expensive. Truex actually was never good on short tracks until like the past couple of years. And his average finish is 16.8, which is pretty crappy, honestly, for a top-tier driver at a short track. But he's been really good here lately, and that's why his price is like that. Kevin Harvick, starting in 6th, that's a pretty good value at $11,000, honestly. Chase Elliott, go with Chase if you think he'll win the race. And Denny Hamlin, same thing. Joey Logano, to me, should have been priced in the 10K range. There's not enough respect for Joey there in that spot. Joey actually led 200-some laps the last time we were at Martinsville earlier on in the season in June. The temperatures and weather was quite different. It's going to be in the 50s, I believe. It's cooling off here in the southeast. So, I still think he will run pretty well, honestly. Top 10 is pretty hard to count out for him. The one thing about Martinsville, to me, it seems like starting position is very key. Now, you can win a race starting outside the top 20, but it hasn't happened since, I believe, like Junior did it. I can't remember what year it was. It's been at least 5 years for sure. So I think it was like 14. Him and Kyle maybe won outside the top 20, but it's just really difficult. So yeah, going with Brad Keselowski, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here, and I'm going to kind of analyze the drivers that you should even think about going. And I'm probably going to cut it off at Suarez. They're starting in 29th. You have Corey LaJoie starting in 26th. One interesting thing about Corey LaJoie, his average finish is 26th. So his average finish is exactly where he's starting. And I have went with some of the strategies this year of picking drivers who their average finish is better than where they're starting, and then just pulling the trigger and not thinking twice about it. It's a little more difficult when you're at Martinsville, being that you have more laps rather than a mile-and-a-half track where it's just different, the passing and everything else like that. But one thing about Corey LaJoie, he's finished 18th in his last 2 starts here. It's very likely that Corey could get a top 25. It's likely that he'll get a top 20, honestly. This is probably his best track performance-wise in terms of consistency in that 32 Go Fast machine. Corey is also racing for a ride next year. So there's a lot at stake for LaJoie. I definitely believe he's a Cup driver. Now, where he'll end up, he may get a really solid Xfinity ride. He may not be. I don't know. It all depends on how the cookies crumble, I guess you can say. I don't know. It's really going to be hard to say where LaJoie's going to end up. So, I do like him in that spot. Another intriguing guy, Ryan Preece starting in 22nd. I don't think that he is valuable in terms of where he's starting, but he is a former modified driver, and I think that weighs, pretty. That's a pretty good indicator that he'll be decent here. He's finished in the top 20 twice. Danny Bone actually ran the truck race, and he ran pretty well. Ryan Newman's another modified guy that he's always performed really well here. He's one of the better drivers at Martinsville, and he's starting in 21st. But it's a risky choice. I don't know that Preece will finish any better where he's starting. Nemechek's kind of in the same boat, John Hunter Nemechek. He's actually won a truck race, but starting in 23rd. If he was in 26th, I'd probably pull the trigger on him. Ty Dillon is very interesting as well. He's starting in 25th. Ty Dillon's average finish is like 21st or 22nd here. He has never crashed out of a race at Martinsville. Now, he's not always ran all 500 laps, but he's been pretty close to it. He may have gotten lapped a few times here and there. Ty Dillon's very consistent at this track. He's another driver that's racing for a ride next year. Germain Racing is going under, or they're not really going under. They're basically just selling all their assets. Probably not going to race ever again, maybe. So, yeah, that's interesting. Michael McDowell finished inside the top 20 last time out, and Chris Buescher did as well. So, really, I mean, if you want to cut it off at Buescher there, Yaley is in the 27 car. Now, Greg Alding ran pretty well there at the Roval in that car. Garrett Smithley wouldn't consider him either. But if I'm scrolling up here, and there's one driver that I haven't really picked a whole lot this year, that the number just adds up to me that I've got to go with Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace starting in 32nd spot. He's at 7,200. A little more than I want to pay, but the thing is, I'm going pretty aggressive with my choices. I've got Brad Keselowski starting in first, and I'm going to pick some other guys that are starting pretty high, so just to give you a little sneak peek there. But Bubba, his average finish is 21.8, which is pretty good. This is probably his best track. He has 2 truck wins, 3 straight top 20s. One thing that I didn't like about going Bubba was the fact that the pit stalls. So he's in the 30th pit stall, and I want to say like John Hunter Nemechek is near him, and I can't remember it was a contender. It was either Logano or someone like that was right behind him, and I didn't really think I liked that too much. But I actually think Bubba, he got a top 15 last time out. I think that's pretty likely this time. I think he's going to be going out and trying to perform really well in this car. I will tell you one thing. The last video I made, I had a little deja vu. So, in the Martinsville race, in June, on the video I did, I picked Ryan Blaney, started on the pole, and Christopher Bell, who started in 32nd. So I don't know how that's an indicator. I think we did okay. I don't know if we won that week because we had a little different drivers. But, yeah. So anyway, that was kind of creepy because these were exactly the first 2 drivers that I picked. Not necessarily because of their starting position, just because of their performance, really. So, yeah, I'm going with Bubba in the 32nd spot. So that leaves us with $7,800 to spend. And I'm going to go ahead and go my cheap option. I think I pumped up LaJoy a little bit ago. I'm going with Corey LaJoy at $5,500. The value is immense there. Corey, I think there could be a decent amount of wrecks, honestly. And I think Corey LaJoy is going to keep really close to the lead lap most of the race for sure. I really like Corey to at least get a top 25 for me. If he can get a top 20, that would be great. I do think Bubba will as well. So that leaves us with $8,600 to spend, right? So this is where I kind of battled with. So I'm going to stop it at Harvick there. With $8,600, it was really difficult for me looking at the playoff standings. I'm thinking, Logano's in, locked in. Doesn't matter how he performs. I think he'll do well. But he could very well push the envelope, and he could get wrecked, and he could be out of the race. Denny Hamlin's starting in 4th. Denny's going to play it safe, but Denny is probably going to want to win. Just like any other place. But this is his bread and butter track. I mean, he has 5 wins here, like I stated. He does have the 22nd pit stall, which I liked because that pit stall, you have a couple blocks there where no one else is in front of you. So he's right at the start-finish line. So he has nobody to worry about in front of him, so he can peel off whenever he wants to because of this tight quarters down there in Martinsville in the pit stall. So I really like Denny Hamlin there. Chase has not been performing well enough for me to go here. He's never won here before. Not to say it can't happen. I think Chase is on the outside looking in right now in the playoffs. I think next year will be a little better year for him, just because of the road course schedule. But I just don't. I don't see it getting done for the Napa team. So yeah, going with Denny Hamlin, and that leaves us with $7,800 to spend. And I'm going to cut it off here at Buescher. I really wanted to go Buescher because he has actually got a pretty decent track record here. Doesn't afford me a whole lot. But one driver that I really considered who has a really good short track program is Matt DiBenedetto. He's starting in 12th. I really like Matt DiBenedetto for this race. I think he could get a top 5. It's pretty feasible. He's in that Penske car. Wood Brothers car that is funded by Penske. It's essentially a 4th Penske car. rather than going Blaney or Logano, I think DiBenedetto is a really good second option. He ran really well at New Hampshire, which is probably more like Martinsville than like Richmond, right? Not to say that they're the same by any means; they're nowhere near it, but they're close. Braking and breaking points and being able to roll is a big deal, and DiBenedetto seems to be really good at that. And that leaves me with $8,700, and Clint Boyer's really good here. Almirola's okay here since Stuart Haas. Tyler Reddick finished like 16th. I'm going with Alex Bowman. Playoff implications abound. Bowman has been killing it in the last few weeks. He doesn't have a great history here, though. His average finish is 22nd, but that's with him driving for BK Racing and Tommy Baldwin. He finished 6th in the race in the summer, and he has the 10th pit stall, which he's close to the front. And just to backtrack, DiBenedetto has a 4th pit stall. LaJoie has the 3rd pit stall. So I picked all my guys that are kind of in between. And that is one thing about DiBenedetto, LaJoie being in front of him. But I think these guys will be close enough in the field where it's not going to be a big deal if they peel off and, maybe take 2 tires or something. We'll see. I do like the fact that they're pitting closer to the end line for pit road. So there you have it. That's what I'm going with here. I tweaked with some of these options. So I went with like Keselowski, and I really liked Chris Buescher initially, and I really liked Corey LaJoie as well. So I had these 2 drivers, and I didn't really know where else I was going to go with this. I really had Denny pegged there, and it kind of left me with kind of similar drivers. If I went Bowman, I'd have like Matt Kenseth, Dillon, Bubba, about the same. Which there, you're really limiting yourself with what you have. Jimmy Johnson is going to be pretty chalky, so if I didn't go with Denny, I could go Jimmy, and I still think you have to go Bubba there, and maybe even pull Buescher and Ty Dillon, and then that leaves you with like Eric Jones, you're 100 off Kyle Busch, so that's a little disappointing. You could go Bowman in with those 4, and maybe DiBenedetto, but you can't get Buescher, you get Stenhouse. So yeah, those are some options you can go with. William Byron's a pretty good option. He's got Chad Knaus as his crew chief, and Chad had all that success with Jimmy, and I picked him last time. But yeah, this is what we're rolling out. So Brad Keselowski, he is my pick to win the race. Hopefully Brad can lead. One time he led like 440 laps here. I actually had him that week, so maybe this is another similar week. So going with Brad Keselowski. Denny Hamlin at 10-2. Really like Denny's track record here. Alex Bowman. So we have 3 playoff drivers. They're starting really high, but I'm hoping they can bail me out with some laps led. I would pick, these are my top 3 picks to win the race. So that's what I'm going with there. Wallace at 7,200, DiBenedetto at 7,000, and rounding out our lineup will be Corey LaJoie at 5,500. So there you have it. That is what the Sports Chief is rolling out here. Martinsville's so difficult. It's really tough. That definitely was a tournament lineup for sure. If you want to go a little more lenient, put Joey Logano in your lineup. If you're going cash game, he's too valuable starting in 7th. And that way you could maybe even roll Jimmy, and Eric Jones is not a bad option too. Starting in 19th, he's not got a great track record, but if you're just going for pure talent instead of past history, that's not a bad option. It's been fun. Hope you all have a safe Halloween weekend, and we actually have a full moon, so how cool is that? Anyway, so the Xfinity races today, we'll check it out, see what's going on as well. Ross Cup race tomorrow on November 1st. If you like what you see here, check us out on Twitter at The Sports Chief. Also on Instagram as well, and also on thesportschief.com is our website. If you want to subscribe to our channel, just hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notification to let you know when our videos go live. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and type something out, and we'll try to answer it. And maybe ask some lineup questions, whatever you would like. So hope you have a good race weekend, and we'll see you at Championship Week at Phoenix next week.